And I think they're more like a city holiday for our government. Yeah, the same birthday.
One minute. Thursday. Too late now. Counselor, how are you? Thank you for joining us this evening for Albany City Council's work session, first work session of the year 2025. I appreciate you all for being here this evening. But first, I'd like to welcome Councilor Michael Thompson from Ward 1 and Councilor Carolyn McLeod from Ward 2. So thank you for joining us this evening and starting your term of service. First thing I'll do is call the meeting to order, and can we have a roll call, please?
Councilor Newton-Azor.
Present.
Councilor Thompson.
Here.
Councilor Montague. Here. Councilor McLeod.
Present.
Councilor Smith.
Here.
Councilor McGee.
Present.
Mayor Johnson II.
Here. You can drop the second during roll call, if you don't mind. Thank you. Next on the council agenda is business from the public. Business from the public is an opportunity for the citizenry to address the council. It's not a back and forth discussion, it's a one-way discussion, an opportunity for us to learn and listen to you. And at the end of the meeting, the council will address any comments you have or they'd like to address during business from the council. So thank you. So no one signed up to speak. Would anyone in chambers like to speak to the council before we get started this evening? Moving on. Next is department strategy discussions, presentations, executive leadership team, pages 2 through 40 in your packet. It's informational only.
Good evening, Council, and welcome to 2025. And to any Budget Review Committee members who've joined us on my left behind me, welcome to them as well. Tonight and Wednesday, our leadership team will present briefings designed to provide a high-level overview of department structures and responsibilities, an update on key accomplishments, including progress made on your 2022-2026 strategic plan, and to help you understand the broader web of legislative, economic, and other trends that impact how we deliver services now and into the future. Previously, we've provided these briefings as a precursor to the budget build, but the intent in future years is to provide them every year so you have a more frequent update. This level of insight, while always important context, is particularly poignant this year as we not only welcome new members of both the Council and the Budget Review Committee, but also enter the last year of our strategic plan, that is the strategic plan that goes from 22 to 26, and begin work on the biennial budget for the next biennium. As you'll find over the next couple of nights, the City of Albany is a complex and evolving community. It's a complex and evolving organization, the city government. While it's impossible to fully package what we do in a presentation, I've asked departments to hone their presentations to provide base level understanding and key details that will help you as elected and appointed officials navigate key policy discussions over the coming year. During these presentations, departments will introduce you to the organization, and provide overviews of the city's primary functions, highlight the significant accomplishments of the last year, note broader trends that are affecting service delivery, and identify the challenges and opportunities we'll navigate in the biennium ahead. A few points that I want to bring particular attention to. Complexity. I think you'll be struck by the complexity of this organization, not just because many of its functions and responsibilities, but also because of the many requirements and legal mandates under which we operate. These presentations are merely snapshots, a base foundation on which you can build further knowledge. Not only do we welcome questions tonight or via email or phone, but we encourage you to take advantage of the wealth of knowledge that the staff has beyond tonight. Plan a ride along with our police department, tour one of our treatment plants or other facilities, or sit down with our utility billing staff as they take calls. This is something I try to do regularly, and I find that there's an incredible amount of value that comes from seeing services in action and meeting the people that provide those services that can never be replicated through presentations and discussion. The next point is interconnectedness. The city of Albany does not exist in a vacuum, and city departments do not exist on their own. The successful execution of departmental responsibilities depends on partnership and collaboration with other city departments, as well as other governmental organizations. And an impact upon one department is always felt by others. Throughout the presentations, you'll hear similar trends playing out in different ways across the organization and how decisions made at the state and federal level impact our community. The city isn't immune to many of the economic, social, and technological changes of the last several years, and that has presented both challenges to and opportunities for our service delivery. And the third and final point is the importance of logistics. Service delivery is really the tip of the spear, but this spear tip is delivered to its target by a long shaft, without which the spearhead would be a useless implement. A quote that's often attributed to General Omar Bradley in World War II is, "Amateurs talk tactics, but professionals talk logistics." These briefings are arranged accordingly. You'll first hear from those at the tip of the spear, departments that provide direct services to our Albany community: community development, public works, police, fire, library, and parks. Then you'll hear from the experts in logistics, finance, IT, and HR, who will give you an assessment of how we're doing in providing our operating departments with the people, the information, and the materials needed to provide those services. And finally, we'll finish with the city manager's office, where we'll discuss how the logistics come together to target your strategic initiatives and community needs. For example, it's a council strategic initiative to provide effective government services, and one way to do that is by making those services accessible to our residents. Tonight's presentation utilizes our new ADA accessible presentation format designed to make the slides easily legible and understandable for all. Again, I remind you that questions are important, not just tonight, but moving forward. So I would encourage those questions. You know, we'd have to keep an eye on the clock, of course. All department directors could talk for a long, long time about their departments. So we want to try to keep those questions at the higher level. If for some reason we finish quickly, all the directors are ready, so we can proceed at a natural pace. So now for the first presenter, let me turn it over to Matthew Rutgers, our Community Development Director.
Good afternoon, councilors, mayor. It's good to see you. Happy 2025. It's crazy to think that we're already in 2025.
You as well.
So, my name is Matthew Rutgers. I'm the Community Development Director. As you'll see on this first slide, our mission, and I'm going to read this because I think it's important, is to provide solution-oriented thinking, partnerships, and robust engagement to promote and facilitate the growth, development, and empowerment of the city and its diverse neighborhoods. So we operate in a department of about 19 FTE, and FTE stands for full-time employees. So you can think of an FTE, one FTE as one person. And we do, you'll see on there the 0.8 and ask what a 0.8 is. That is somebody that works 32 hours a week. So we have one position that is not a full-time position. We operate off of 3 basic departments. Another biannual budgets are $4.4 million for planning, 6.8 for economic development, and 6.1 for our building division. So our primary functions on the planning side is current and long-range planning, sometimes referred to as comprehensive planning. And we do development review for any new development in the city of Albany, whether that's a new restaurant or a new house or a large development like a new subdivision or multifamily complex. We also do floodplain management, so floodplain review per FEMA's regulations, looking for properties that are developing in the floodplain, as well as historic preservation for development within any one of our 4 historic districts. The comprehensive or long-range planning side also manages the Community Development Block Grant, which is sometimes referred to as CDBG. Those are monies that we get from the federal government, and it's usually spent on housing services and things like that. That money is actually managed through the CDC or Community Development Commission, and they help decide where those grant monies get spent. On the comp plan side, we're also responsible for updating, well, comp and current planning, updating our development code. So the Albany Development Code, there's a lot of acronyms, so I'll try to explain them. Commonly referred to as the ADC, so Albany Development Code. That's the regulations that any development in the city of Albany follows. So we routinely do updates to that ADC or Albany Development Code, whether that be from requirements passed on by the state, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the future, or whether it be things that we're looking to update the code to help promote certain types of development or just general fixes that need to occur. And also on the planning side is we do have code compliance when there is a project or development that is out of compliance with the development code. We do have a compliance side that strives to achieve voluntary compliance with that development code. The other division is economic development, which focuses on business retention and expansion. So we're reaching out to our existing businesses to see how we can support or where they might need help, whether it be for retaining their existing size or even in the cases of expansion. We're also working on business recruitment. So when we have new businesses that may want to come to town, we're working with them to define what their needs are, and if we can pair them up with the site. Obviously, the city doesn't own the sites, but we're very aware of sites that are available to see if we can pair them up with the site. And that goes along with that next bullet, which is job creation. A lot of the economic development division program and its staff, its focus is on relationships and partnerships. And that's something that we take a great amount of pride in, is going out, connecting with our business partners and building those relationships so that they are aware that we are a resource. That all plays into that economic growth component of what the city's doing by bringing in new businesses, creating new jobs. We also have a certain number of programs and incentives, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. Then on the building permitting and inspection side, generally referred to as our building division, it pairs with that development review side. So when there's land use, there's ultimately going to be construction of buildings. And those buildings are required to follow the state of Oregon's building codes. A lot of people will think that it's the city of Albany's building codes, which they are not. The state has its own building codes, which we have a delegation from the state to implement their building codes and see that they're followed. So in that process, we do all the permit reviews and permit inspections. When people apply for a permit to build a new structure, it gets reviewed based on that state building code. And once issued, we also go out and do inspections based on that state building code. Along with that, we're evaluating new construction for compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act compliance, or ADA, and also has a code compliance function very similar to the development code, where you've got a building that may be out of compliance or they haven't followed the rules. Maybe they've done some work without permits, unknowingly or knowingly, and we help bring them into, we always strive for a voluntary compliance. We don't go after people just for the fun of it. We try to find a workable solution to get them into code compliance. And then there's also an emergency response component that fortunately we haven't had to use a whole lot, but in the case of a natural disaster or an incident that occurs with a building, our inspectors are available to go out to verify that the building is safe to occupy before people go back into it. So I won't take a lot of time on this. This is just our general org chart of our basically 19 staff, with community development director, administrative services coordinator that helps support the entire department. And you can see our comprehensive planning side, which is 2 staff. Our current planning side, which consists of 3, building official, or building division, which consists of a building official, the building inspectors, and permit technicians, who are the ones that receive and do the initial intake and processing of permits. And then our small but mighty economic development staff of 2 people. So on accomplishments in the last several years, we've really focused in on enhancing our engagement and figuring out new ways to engage with our community. And we've done this through focus groups, open houses, surveys. We also, within the last 2 years, created the Development Services Advisory Group, lovingly known as the ADSAG. And that is a once-a-month meeting that occurs actually in this room at 7 a.m. It's an opportunity for anybody who uses our development services to come in and talk with me. And sometimes we have other staff there. And it's meant to be very open, more of a conversation than anything else. We don't have agendas. It's pretty amazing. Sometimes I know the mayor's come to a few of the meetings, the conversations that we do have. And some really great things have actually come out of that Development Services Advisory Group, in that we get to hear things in there that we wouldn't normally hear. I like to say, I don't know what I don't know. And people are pretty honest in those meetings. And we've taken suggestions out of there that will actually lead into this process improvements column that I'll talk about in a moment, that came directly from that Development Services Advisory Group. I'm really proud of the work that group has done. It's been pretty amazing. We also did a historic resources engagement survey, where we sent out a survey to all of the people who own properties in our historic districts, just as a check-in to see how they felt about our existing code, how it was being implemented, if there were things they liked about it, if there's things they didn't like about it. And we're currently in the process of evaluating all of that. And something that you'll see that we're also doing is just creating more access in plain language, trying to eliminate acronyms as much as we can and make things a little bit easier to digest. Plain language is very important. Sometimes we get caught up in our own kind of world of language and jargon, and it can be difficult. On the process improvements, as I had mentioned, that streamlining of planning applications and reviews, that's a direct result from the Development Services Advisory Group, working with that group to talk about where some of the pain points were. Albany is very good at processing applications. I would put our timelines up against any community in Oregon. But we don't settle for just good enough. We look for ways to, well, how can we improve that process for them? And through that, we came up with taking what would have normally been a 20-page staff report and reducing that down into a checklist-style system on applications that it made sense to do that with. There's still applications that are bigger that we need to do the full staff report, But on some of these others, most of our standards are pretty clear and objective. So we're able to reduce that down to a checklist and actually shaved a good amount of time off that process time. Obviously, there's still notices with land use, so we're not shaving any of those timelines. It's really on the staff side to see where we can save time. You know, having been in the development world before I started in the public sector, we always say there's nothing more that'll kill a project faster than time. So that was important to us. Along with that came the streamlining of our online permitting and inspection services. So now somebody can get online, apply for all their permits. They can also schedule all of their inspections, and our inspection calendars have preloaded into it all the dates when, say, if we've got a staff vacation. As you saw, we don't have an immense amount of staff, so we may only have one specialized plumbing inspector. We're able to pre-program in when they have vacation time, so you're not getting people scheduling inspections when a plumbing inspector may not be there. But we also have the ability to call in third party if that's going to be an extended period of time. It also accounts for any of the holidays. Another accomplishment for this year was implementation of short-term rentals, and that's for the collection of the transient lodging tax, which we have not done. That's something that council had directed some time, and it's taken a little bit of time for us to get a consultant on board to help put that together, but that is currently in the works, and that should come online in this first quarter, I believe. So on the accomplishment side, something that I think we're probably all pretty familiar with is the Albany Waterfront Project. That was pulled together through with the assistance of the Central Albany Revitalization Area Partnership, where we revitalized our waterfront, and is still a project that's occurring, a beautiful new Monteith River Park. We also maintained our Class 5 community rating in the CRS, which is Community Rating System, floodplain rating, and that results in a cost savings to any of our citizens that are required to carry floodplain insurance of about 25%, which is a pretty significant number for the folks that do have to carry that flood insurance. We completed our housing implementation plan, which was a lengthy project, started with our Housing Affordability Task Force that made suggestions on strategies, and then that rolled into the implementation of this housing implementation plan that suggests many strategies on how we can impact housing affordability across the range of housing options. We also are still working on, but have made the first steps in compliance with the state's mandates on climate-friendly and equitable communities, and that is an ongoing project and will be for the next couple months or next couple years. That involved development code changes, which, as you'll learn as counselors, are not a fast process. Changes to our development code range from anywhere from a year to at least 6 months, because it has to go through planning commission as well as council, multiple public hearings. We also saw the adoption of the East Albany plan, which East Albany had a plan done on it about 10 years ago, and we've seen development occur in East Albany that didn't occur necessarily the way that we would have anticipated. So as an opportunity that arose through a Transportation Growth Management Act grant, we were able to get to perform the East Albany plan and re-envision what that portion of Albany could look like. And that was done through changes in comp plan designations to create town centers and things like that. So as far as trends go, when community development, we tend to be on the front line of seeing, as Peter indicated, kind of the tip of the spear. And we see where growth is coming, whether that be through the building side, but certainly on the land use side. And that's a really great indicator for any of that growth is going to result in demands in service, whether that be demands on our utility systems or transportation systems, which result in, and also, police and fire, and all of those need that support from our central services internal. So we end up being kind of the canary in the mine when we see big years of growth. That's going to be more of a demand on service for the city. We have also seen, and most of you have probably heard in the last several months, a growing resistance to higher density development as the state is kind of pushed towards more housing units, which is densifying in areas that aren't used to seeing a lot of density. And that will be a continued issue as people get used to higher density type developments in areas where it has not occurred. And that is come about through kind of the next piece, which is unfunded state and federal mandates, one of those being middle housing, which allows for middle housing unit types on what used to be single family zones, allowing people to build duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and townhomes, cottage clusters on what was once just a single family lot and only allowed for one unit. We'll also continue to look at and face housing affordability across all housing types, whether that be true affordable subsidized housing, all the way up to just your standard single-family home that you or I might live in. On the business community, they're still facing low employee retention within our business community. You get people that move on fairly quickly, whether that, and a lot of these can be interconnected. Housing obviously plays a big factor in that. And then generally, Oregon tends to have an unfriendly business climate, at least that's the perception out there. We do our best on the economic development side to change that as much as we can within Albany, make sure that we're as friendly as we can be. Mr. Thompson.
I assume you, did you produce this, this slide and select the center square contribution, which you can't really read very much, where you got some of this text from, is that you that?
The slides were actually selected by me. These are just headlines off of the internet.
Yeah, no, I got that. And you know, reading it, it struck me, some of the language struck me as very, not very, but somewhat right-leaning. I mean, you know, you are the expert, and I expect to see kind of neutral type language in some of these quotes. Like in the bottom here, it's hard to read, but it says the state legislature passed 60 new laws impacting small business in 2023, some of which created new penalties for business. Well, that might be good. The mere number isn't really, that's kind of a biased statement, kind of implying that they create a lot of penalties. But from a citizen standpoint, from a resident standpoint, that might be good. I did a little research. The Center for the Center Square publication is rated as kind of slightly right-leaning, and that came through to me. And so, I mean, I have serious disagreements with a lot of these headlines and stuff, and I'm just kind of surprised that you would produce this. In the future, I'd like to see more neutral type language from you. Like, what are your problems and challenges? This is problems and challenges from someone who has, or some group that has a very definite viewpoint.
Understood.
That's my input more than a question.
Appreciate that. And there wasn't, we're just trying to capture headlines. There wasn't meant to be a bias one way or another. They were interesting headlines that popped up. And yeah. But duly noted, thank you. So looking ahead, we certainly have challenges with continued unfunded and state federal mandates. As the state has moved towards passing laws and regulations like middle housing, as they do still continue to modify the existing middle housing code or regulations that were put out there. Those are things that the staff have to be pretty nimble in adjusting development code to comply with those regulations. Some of those include, it involves the cost to remove barriers to development. Some of that is, dealing with wetlands. Obviously on the staff side, we always worry about employee turnover, burnout, as we work with a small staff try to get a lot of work done, as well as succession planning for, as we've got several staff members that will be eligible for retirement very soon, and that their departure results in a lot of institutional knowledge. They've been here for a long time and have been mentors for a lot of our staff. It's not easy to replace that. But with challenges also comes opportunities. You know, new employees equals new experiences, can bring new energy into the work that we do. We're always looking at new and creative ways to engage with our community experts and industry, one of those being the Economic Development Advisory Group that we've got, who are industry professionals that are going to help on the economic development side and providing ideas and thoughts on things that we can do. It's also an opportunity for new investment in employees and engage education opportunities to continue education of our staff makes us only better. And then obviously a new strategic plan and corresponding updates to our comprehensive plan, which is, other than some very minor updates through the years, remains pretty much unchanged since 1982 and is due for a pretty significant update. Though the one thing, before I hand it back over to Public Works and Peter, I will mention that I meant to get to under our primary functions is we do, you heard me talk about unfunded mandates from the state, whether that be on the planning side or even on the building code side, is understanding that staff do spend a good amount of time, I'm not going to say fighting, but providing a good amount of input at the state level where we feel that those mandates or those new regulations, those new rules aren't in alignment with what our community believes or what our community wants. So we are taking direct input from the community, from this council, and where we can, providing those inputs back to the state when we feel that something is maybe not appropriate or won't be well received. So that is something that is part of our jobs, and we are doing that. I've actually got a meeting tomorrow doing some of that. So it's just wanted to make sure that we touched on that. And with that, I'll wrap up and really thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you, Director. Counselor Smith has a comment.
One question. The Development Services Advisory Group, how many people are on that? Is it a rotating number, whoever shows up, or were they selected to participate?
So that group is on purpose. It's not selected. So it's an invite that I sent out to anybody that uses our development services or people that I think might be interested. They're not appointed. They come and go as they please. Someday we'll have, or some mornings we'll have, 20 people in that room to talk about all different kinds of topics. And some days it's 4 or 5. It can vary from developers, engineers, realtors. Janet from the chamber is a regular attendee of that. Construction business owners. I mean, the attendance is pretty widely varied, and it's encouraged for if they've got time, and we wanted to make it as flexible as possible. If you've got time to come, please come. And if not, it's okay if you don't come to every single meeting. So, and it's worked out really, really well.
How do you get the word out about it happening?
Typically, the word, there's a base group that I started with when we first tested this, and then we've expanded from there. It's a lot of word of mouth. Obviously, we're cautious to not grow it too big to where it's unmanageable, but it's, I get the word out through our realtor groups, through our development channels, any of our builders, if they're doing work and using our services a lot. While I don't discourage anybody from coming, the value for the person that's here to do one job probably isn't very high, but we see our frequent flyers, if you will, contractors, things like that. I'm extending the invite to them of, hey, if you've got things that you'd like to talk about, or you just want to come and sit and listen, please join us. And all of you are welcome to attend as well. 7 o'clock every 4th Wednesday.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you, Director. Any Counselor, any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Director Bailey, Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ooh, I am one of those people that can talk for hours. I've got feedback.
Let's set a timer.
No. I'm trying to turn this sound off. Sorry. What's going on? Hello? Okay, that's better. Sorry. No. I can talk for hours about Public Works, but I have this down to less than 15 minutes and Kim is going to time me. So, my name is Chris Bailey. I'm the Public Works Director. I've worked for the city for over 20 years, and I've been here as director for almost 4 years. Public Works is the largest department in the city, both in terms of number of personnel and in budget. I was given the chance to talk to you more than once about Public Works, but we're going to do it in 15 minutes. And it's a very high-level presentation. You end up hearing from me a lot through the year, but please ask questions. I hope you ask questions. There are at least 20 good prompts for questions in this presentation. Our mission statement reads, working together to plan, build, and maintain essential utility services and infrastructure for the Albany community. When we were building this mission statement, the first phrase, working together, was probably the most important one that we all agreed on because we are a big department, we have a big mission, and we can't get it done if we don't work together. So that's the most important part of the mission for our staff. In the current biennium, we have 137 full-time equivalent positions, and our biennial budget is almost $204 million, which is usually hovers around half of the city's total budget. That covers operations, capital, debt payment, and reserves. But like most departments all departments that are lucky enough to have a reserve, we don't actually spend that much money. So we're not spending $204 million in the biennium because there's some portion of that that is carried over as a reserve. The other thing I'll note about our budget is that we get no general fund money. So this will come up time and time again. The only general fund money we get is a small payment to help administer the city service fee through our utility building department. Hello. Technical assistance. Help. Stop the timer. It stops. Don't worry. Okay. I mean, I am of a certain age, so. Oh, God. That's embarrassing. Okay, you can describe Public Works in many ways. This is the way I've chosen to slice us up for this presentation. First, our first primary function is to operate and maintain existing services and infrastructure. So that includes drinking water, stormwater, wastewater, transportation, and then I'm also including automation because we do more and more with automation and it's becoming a larger part of what we do. Our second primary function is regulatory compliance. Our department is subject to myriad regulations. Just a couple of examples here on the slide. We have the Federal Clean Water Act and the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act, both of which are delegated through the state to enforce. And then in addition to those, we have just a number of federal and state rules and laws that we have to follow from an absolute alphabet soup of organizations. So if you can think of a state or federal agency, we probably deal with them in some way. Except DPSST, that's Chief Herndon's problem. And finally, final main function is infrastructure replacement, repair, and expansion. So this includes master planning, which is the long-term analysis of the needs of the utility. We master plan all of our systems, water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation, including the transit system and the airport, all have master plans. Master plans look at the need of that system over the next 20 years with an eye to the ultimate build-out of the city. Development review is another function, which is when a new development is proposed within the city, as Matthew was describing. Our engineers review the plans and ensure the connections to and impact on our existing systems is appropriate now and for the future. And then capital design and construction includes projects that repair existing infrastructure and facilities, replaces those infrastructure or facilities, or expands them. This is an organization chart. It's simplified. On the left, we have engineering services, which does those last few things I was just mentioning. Then we have operations, which is our largest group. These are all the people that keep everything running. So we have field staff, treatment staff, mechanics, bus drivers, our automation staff. We have our own CMMS, which stands for computerized maintenance management system. So this is how we track our assets and do asset management. Then administration group, we have a small admin group with clerks and administrative assistants. We also do some of our own contracting in coordination with finance because we have a lot of contracts that we administer and work with. And then we have the financial services group, which we have our own senior accountant business manager who helps us track all of our enterprise funds. Most of our work is done through enterprise funds. Ask me what that means. And then he also supervises the project accountant and the utility billing staff.
What is an enterprise fund?
Good question. So Gina Yeager, the finance director, is probably the best person to answer this, but in my simple explanation, an enterprise fund is something that has to function as a business. It has to be self-supporting by its own rates and charges. So for instance, the water fund is an enterprise fund, and it has to pay for itself through water rates, other fees and charges. It can take on debt, that sort of thing. But the water fund pays for water. It does not pay for sewer. It doesn't pay for police, et cetera. So it has specific rules and laws about how it can be used.
So with that, we cannot move money from that fund to the general fund and vice versa.
You cannot. I mean, the general fund could give us money for water if you would like it to do that. But it can't, I mean, we can't, the only way we can do that I've seen is through an interfund loan. And that has happened where one fund has loaned another fund money, but the receiving fund has to pay back the loan as a loan with interest. So Gina can talk more about that. I'm way out over my skis on that. So let's see, accomplishments. We've done a lot in the last biennium. I have a few examples here, so I've sort of broken them up by category. On the technical side, one of our most proud moments was earning the Outstanding Performer Award from the State Drinking Water Program. It's very difficult to achieve. We get inspected every 3 years, plus no notice inspections from the EPA, which are super fun. And we've been trying to earn this award for a while and finally got it, so that was great. We continue to grow and expand the compost program at the water reclamation facility. And we implemented a transit expansion, which essentially doubled service on both the Lynn Benton Loop and Albany Transit System. In the general management category, we completed our water master plan update that directs our investments and provides information for growth of our drinking water system for the next 20 years. Our staff worked with ODOT to complete the Highway 20 corridor study, which looked at the highway from North Albany through downtown to identify opportunities to improve safety and reduce congestion. And we completed a major revision to our organization, which created career pathways for many of our line staff and brought their wages up to a competitive rate. Sort of in the financial category, we applied for and were awarded a federal charging and fueling infrastructure grant, which was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and that will allow us to design and construct up to 4 EV charging stations in the city. We received both state and federal grant funding for the Cox Creek Interceptor project, and we applied for and received a grant to purchase an additional street sweeper, which we're still waiting on, but we're excited about. We also developed and the council approved the Stormwater System Development Charge, which is the final piece in a comprehensive funding structure for the stormwater utility. We've done a lot of work to build a local funding mechanism for streets that you will be hearing more about over the coming months. And we continued our work with Energy Trust of Oregon, which we've been doing for years, where we identify and implement energy conservation projects, and then we receive a financial incentive that we can reinvest in future energy projects. So it's a great program. Trends in public works. In addition to general inflation, which I'm sure you'll be hearing about from everyone, including us, we also are subject to inflation in construction costs, which has grown faster than even regular inflation, quote unquote. So our capital dollars are purchasing less, which means the impact of the ratepayers just becomes compounded. Regulatory complexity. Regulations continue to become more complicated and the requirements more stringent. I'll just mention PFAS as one example. Climate change, in addition to sort of the normal climate change impacts that you hear about, we are tracking closely the impact of climate change during drought years on stream flow, because that affects our ability to withdraw water for our drinking water system. And the state is making some changes with water rights that we're tracking very closely to ensure that the city is protected and has access to adequate source water as climate change sort of becomes more of a real thing. Let's see. The availability of and interest in technical training for the water wastewater field is declining. Finding young people who are interested in our work is more difficult, and getting them trained appropriately is also harder. So double-edged whammy right there. Similar to our IT department, which you'll be hearing about, Public Works has a separate control network for our automated systems. These control many of our facilities, pumps, treatment plants, lots of programs that automatically run things, which is very helpful. And you probably have heard that these networks are being targeted more and more by bad actors and people trying to take over water facilities, for instance, which would be very bad. So we're tracking that. And finally, all of that makes everything more expensive. And so for the most part, our citizens pay for our programs. So trying to continue to provide a high level of service and maintain it as affordable for our citizens is a trend that we're working on here. And it's also something that's discussed nationally because we're not the only ones with that problem. Okay, last slide. Challenges and opportunities. So 3 challenges: recruitment and retention of a properly trained workforce. You're going to be hearing that a lot from everybody, but it's true for us as well. One specific relevant factor is that LBCC used to offer a water wastewater degree. That program ended a few years ago, and that was a really great source of trained staff for us that has now gone away. Cost of everything is going up. Labor, materials, chemicals, construction costs, insurance costs, everything is going up. So that's a struggle. And then shifting priorities. So for instance, the recent emphasis from the state on housing was new. And I'm not going to offer an opinion on whether it's good or bad. It's just something we had to deal with, and we weren't planning on having to deal with that when we developed all of our master plans. As you can imagine, taking a single family lot and now having it be able to host up to 4 dwelling units will impact your long-range plans for your utilities. So you just have to be aware of that. And since we weren't planning for that, now we're having to figure out how to include that in all of our future planning. It also has impacts now as people want to, there are some movements to try to make building housing more affordable. One of the costs, of course, is utilities and the availability of utilities. So how do we manage making utilities available without significantly impacting current ratepayers? It's something we're struggling with right now. Another shifting priority, for instance, is the federal definition of waters of the U.S. Figure out what it is. It'll change in 2 or 3 years. On the opportunity side, we have new lines of business. So the compost program I mentioned, we're now to the point of selling our compost, which is great. It's going to bring in revenue and create a market for us. We also have the sweeper, which will enable us to have contract sweeping with the state and counties potentially, where they will fully reimburse our fully burdened rate, which is a phrase some of you might remember, and draw in some revenue for the street program. Technology is an opportunity. Automation should help us become more efficient with our limited staff and resources. And you'll be hearing about advanced meters, which is a technology improvement we hope to implement. And then finally, I put down master planning as an opportunity to learn what our infrastructure needs in order to continue to work today and to grow. In the next biennium, we're going to be completing both our transportation and our wastewater master plans, which will help direct our work for many years to come. And that's it for Public Works, unless you have questions.
Question? If I missed it, excuse me, but I wanted to know if you could describe what happens to the green stuff that we pull out of Waverly Lake. I don't think people know that it goes to the slide that was the last slide.
Yeah, so, and we've done this with multiple things. Really across the city, we try to work together to help each other. And so Parks needed the algae removed from Waverly Lake. There's a disposal cost associated with that if they had to haul it off. Well, we need green material to build our compost. So they brought the algae from Waverly Lake down to our compost facility, and it was incorporated as part of our compost at that time that we were building. So it was reused appropriately, which helps save us money because we purchase our green waste that we mix in, saved them some money, and it became a product that people can apply on their gardens and mulch beds and everywhere.
So it's safe?
Yeah, so the compost is what's called Class A exceptional quality compost. It's I like to describe it as it's the same process as you have in your compost pile in your backyard, but it's heavily regulated, like everything we do. And so it's classified as Class A exceptional quality, and it can go anywhere. You can use it in your vegetable gardens, your rose beds, your planter strips. It's safe for public contact, and it looks just like any other compost that you could buy in a bag or in bulk.
So we got a little bucket of this compost last year. This is a statistically irrelevant study, but I did utilize it on some of my dahlias that were potted, and they were much more beautiful. So I'm just saying,
There you
it's
have
great.
it. If you want
So-
beautiful dahlias,
There you go.
yep.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Now that LBCC has closed their program, are you looking at other colleges to see if we can recruit out of there, or?
Yeah, it's a challenge because every wastewater and water utility in the state has the same problem. So they're at Rogue Community College, I think, well, it's probably not what it's called, Umpqua in Roseburg has a program, and I believe it's Columbia, maybe, one of the ones up in Portland has a program. And so we're all sort of competing for the same small group of people. What we are all, so yes, and what we're also doing is trying to start from zero. And part of the reorganization was to try to look at, can we bring people in who just are good workers and interested in being trained, and can we train them somehow? And so there are state certifications for the work that those folks do, and one of the things you need is time. And so we can offer them time, help them pass the test, give them study skills and things like that, and then try to grow them internally. So that's another avenue that we're working on.
Okay, please, Counselor.
She asked it.
I wish
Beat
they
me
would
to
bring
it.
that program back. It was so
Yeah.
great. Yeah,
You and me both.
yeah.
So I'm going to take a 5-minute, but can we reconvene at 5 o'clock? I need a bio break. And so we'll be back at 5 o'clock.
I know.
Everybody back? Okay. I know. 1 minute countdown. Since everyone's back, want to go ahead and get started, Chief?
Sounds good.
I'll now reconvene the meeting at 4:59 PM.
I'll try to talk faster than Chris Bailey.
Shots fired. Oh my gosh.
Good. Now it's evening. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Thanks for having me to talk a little bit about what we've done over the last biennium with the police department. As you can see, our mission, our tagline is excellence through service. We actually have a very long mission statement, but it won't fit on here and meet our ADA compliance, so I cut it down a little bit. This is what people know us most for, is the excellence through service. We have 99.25 employees. That 0.25 is a part-time records specialist position that comes and helps us on Mondays and Fridays, which are some of our heaviest days. And we have a $40.8 million biennial budget. And I want to break that down a little bit because as we move into the budget process and into the calendar, some of these will have to come in front of you. Our general fund comes in about $33.9 million. That's supplemented by our city services fee, which is $1.8 million approximately. And then we, as well as the fire department, are supported by a levy, which is coming due here in short order and will come to you shortly as well, for the total biennial budget of $40.8 million over the 2 years. And I wanted to point out that the previous council had approved the city services fee, which accounts for 5.2% of our budget, or 15 employees. 5.2%, and then 15 of our employees are covered by the levy, with the other 84.25 covered by the general fund.
Could you repeat those numbers?
I'm sorry?
Could you repeat those numbers for me real quick?
Sure.
Or what is supported by the levy, what's supported by, because I didn't see it in the slide.
Sure, I can, if I give you the notes, it'll all be in the notes for the PowerPoint. Does that work for you?
That works great.
Okay. On the primary functions of us, obviously, that we have, our primary role is law enforcement with 24/7, 365 patrol function. And then we have a detective unit that handled over the last, at least in 2023, over 200 cases, criminal cases assigned, but reviewed close to 500. We also, coming out of COVID and some budget challenges, stood up our traffic unit. One of those positions now is supported by a DUI grant from the state of Oregon, and that's specifically for DUI enforcement. And then there's another full-time position and then a supervisor associated with that. Additionally, we have the Lynn Interagency Narcotics Enforcement, also known as the LINE team, that is made up of a consortium of agencies from Lynn County, Albany, Lebanon, Sweet Home, Oregon State Police, National Guard, and DEA. And just to give you an idea, in 2023, they seized narcotics worth $36 million. So they're a very busy group. It's also supported by HIDA, which is high-intensity drug trafficking area, where we get federal funding to help supply equipment and the like. They don't pay for any of the staff. They just pay for equipment and other things. Under community resources, we have the CSOs, or community service officers. Those are the ones that drive the pickup trucks around, that handle a lot of our abandoned vehicles, our low-level traffic collisions, our cold crimes, low-level cold crimes like thefts and the like. And then also do with some of our drunken trash, things like that in the community as well. We have a great partnership with the Parks Department, and we pay 50-50 on a park service officer who helps maintain security and safety around our vast amount of parks. We have a community engagement officer and also PIO. That's Laura. If you'd like our social media, that's her. And then you will get to know, and some of you know very well, Chris Shandell, which is also a shared position under the city manager's office and community development, as well as we have 2 school resource officers that cover all of our public schools and part-time of our private schools and handle all the cases that originate out of the schools wherever possible. Additionally on here, just because I didn't have room, is we also have the mental health intervention specialist, which is a crisis worker that we created a couple of years ago with council approval using ARPA money, and moving forward we'll use some other existing federal funds and other revenues coming in to keep that position. That has allowed us a mental health crisis person to service the citizens of Albany. And she also supports our community partners that do that same work. Under support services, we have a secondary 911 center, and what that means is that when you call 911, you're going to either go to Oregon State Police, Linn County Sheriff's Office, or Corvallis Communication Center. And if it's an Albany police call, you get transferred to our 911 center. And they are trained 911 dispatchers as well as call takers. They took about 49,000 calls last year. And then we have our records unit, who handles just about anything we produce that comes via the police department. They processed over 8,000 cases in 2023. And our property evidence room, which I always ask people on tours, how much evidence you think we have over 35,000 pieces of evidence in that facility. The next one is our org chart. Because we're a large organization, this might be a little bit tough to read, but this kind of gives you an idea of the 2 branches. I have an operational branch and a supportive branch. Each are run by a captain, and you'll see 1 or 2 of those on occasion sitting in the back if I can't make a council meeting. Feel free to engage with them if you have questions about the police department. But this gives you a basic breakdown of how we're organized and laid out within the department. And it seems like every budget, this shifts a little bit as we attempt to reorganize and be efficient. Our big accomplishments over the last biennium is the addition of the East Substation, which is a very generous rental agreement we have with the Coastal Farm or Cal Ranch organization out at the old Coastal Farm offices, where we have the space in the top picture that allows officers to do all the work they need to do, because we're a paperless organization, from a remote location without having to come back to the west side of the city. And I will tell you that our #1 address for police services in the city of Albany is Walmart, almost consistently, that or Winco. So that keeps resources to the east side, particularly with our rapid growth over there. And then also last year, we expanded photo enforcement. We upgraded the cameras at Queen and Geary to allow for speed and red light violations. We did a 30-day warning period. It is now live with violations. We're working through some technology problems with that at the moment, but we do expect it to move forward with 3 more locations coming on during 2025. And then online reporting is the latest thing. It launched in December. Already we've taken 21 reports through that online reporting portal. And what that allows people to do is, hey, my car got broken into, but I have got to catch a plane at PDX and I can't wait around for a police officer. They can report it from their phone, their tablet, whatever the case may be. We don't allow serious crimes to be reported that way, but it's a more efficient way for people to engage with the police department. And then one thing that we're very proud of, we're one of 3 agencies in the state of Oregon to have international accreditation. It is a 4-year cycle process. We just finished that, got reaccredited at the end of 2023. So we're in our third accreditation cycle now. That requires a full-time employee to do that work, as well as all of us that have to produce the proofs to do that on an annual basis, and they come and spot check us each year. That is a huge feat, considering there's only three in the state of Oregon, and there's a fourth coming online with this particular group. Some more accomplishments. This is something that we've worked really hard to do, and most police departments cannot match this at the current time. We've maintained 2% or lower vacancy rate. If you followed the staffing crisis of law enforcement and public safety, this is a pretty amazing feat that we've been able to do. We were fully staffed for a short time in both years, but as people come and go and retire, that will fluctuate, but our goal is always to be between 1% and 2% for a vacancy rate. We are experiencing normal attrition, and by that, it's people aging out and retiring, they're vested, and things like that. We're not seeing people leave for other agencies. We have people that have left for personal reasons. They exit law enforcement for family reasons and the like. But generally, people are staying put, and that's good because it takes us 18 months to train a baby police officer from the moment that they enter background to the moment they're on their own. It's a very expensive endeavor. Our goal is 30% by 2030 for female police officers. We're currently at 22%. And some of our top candidates coming through the pipeline right now, the top 3 are female, so we're doing some good things in attracting female candidates there. And we're really proud of being awarded the top workplace. We're the only government organization to get it in our size range for 2024 by the Oregonian. Additionally, we were able to pull off 2 community academies, and one's an adult and one's in a youth academy. And then we held 4 diversity advisory and alliance team, we call them the DAAT team meetings, and that has helped us navigate some pretty serious crises and just engagement with our underrepresented communities over the last couple of years. And then I don't have time or space on here to talk about the hundreds of hours we've given at Shop with a Cop, Coffee with a Cop, and other engagement opportunities. If people call us and say, hey, we would love for you to come out and spend some time at our location, we do our best to accommodate that. Some of the trends we're dealing with, and again, you'll hear it from the other directors, is growth. We are a rapidly growing city. I stole the East Albany plan map there. That's the picture. And then this is our crime snapshot that I can pull on pretty much a weekly basis to see where we're at. And our call load is climbing. Our ability to get to calls is, because of traffic volumes, is climbing up as well. So if anytime you're curious what's going on in the city, we have a pretty good, we call it ComStat, where we can look and take the temperature of any of our crimes in the city. Anything that's in red is not a good thing for me to look at. So we're certainly better violent crime-wise than we were in 2021, for sure. But we don't want to see any increases. We want to see decreases. So that's good. And then looking ahead, our labor costs, I can't even begin to tell you. We settled a very competitive but fair contract based on the numbers and the CPI and COLA numbers at the time. That was costly, cost me not being able to hire a position, and they continue to climb. All of our costs, from buying and equipping a police car, has gone up 25%. Our portable radios that we have on our belts are now approaching $12,000 a piece. And 10 years ago, they were a fraction of that. So those are all things that we're facing. We're scrambling to try to put some money aside, anticipating those needs in the future. And then we'll continue to focus on employee retention and replacement. Depending on where my budget lies, I try to overhire. And by that, I mean, if somebody's retiring 6 months from now, we start the hiring process now to replace that person, because it takes a while to get that person onboarded. And that has helped us in a little bit. But also, I have to look not only what employees I have on the books, but what are deployable employees. And if you're at a police academy or you're not yet fully certified, I can't deploy you as a police officer. or a dispatcher. And so that kind of drags down those numbers. And we've had some pretty serious injuries to officers over the last couple of months, and that's going to take them out for 6 to 12 months. And so those are all positions we have to end up answering for. So that's our challenge coming up. And we need to grow. I've done my best over the last 2 years to limit my big ticket items, which are police officer positions, and fill with CSO positions and the park services officer and the like, trying to do work in other places. But the fact of the matter is an agency our size with a call load our size, we need to grow. And as we build the budget, that's what I will be looking at as a priority. And then the opportunities is we will continue to be an example, a gold standard agency within the state of Oregon. We take our job very seriously, but not ourselves. If you've known kind of our antics on social media, but we take our professionalism very, very seriously. And every time I review a video where there's use of force or anything like that, I'm constantly impressed by the good work and professional manner in which that we have to do those unfortunate things. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, please.
You mentioned there were 4 diversity advisory and alliance team meetings. Can you expand on that, please?
The meetings or the group?
Both.
Okay. When I came here in 2020, I was fortunate at the City of Bellevue to have advisory councils from our underrepresented communities that advise us on ways that we better serve them and build trust with them. And so that was the intent behind it. COVID hit and the death of George Floyd hit us, and so we just started. It's been a little bumpy at times, but we have a good, really core group that represent, I think, as much of the diverse Albany residents as we can get, as well as people from professional organizations, GAPS, LBCC, and the like, and just give us some input on ways that we can do things better. And it's really all about trust and communication. Our meetings will talk about, hey, this is the issue that we're dealing with. How can we navigate it? How can we build trust? How can we communicate and the like? And if something bad happens, and sometimes it does, how do we go about engaging our community more effectively? So generally, that's what we do in those meetings, and anybody from council is welcome to attend those. In fact, a former counselor, Stacey Bartholomew, was on there, left for a while, and then came back. So.
One of those meetings, Chief?
We do them every quarter, so we just pushed out the January meeting into February.
Can you get that to the city clerk so they can get it on our schedules as a
Absolutely.
That'd be great. Go ahead, please, Counselor.
So what is the benefit of the accreditation?
Oh, Lord.
Well, I don't think we have that much time. It benefits us a lot. One of the things it requires us to do is it doesn't tell us what to do and how to do it. It tells us make sure that we're following best practices. And we have not only the policies in place, but we have the proofs that we're following those policies. You can policy anything all day long, but if you don't have the culture to support those policies, you might have some issues. So we have to prove every year that we're doing certain things. The other thing that it's pushed us to do is follow organizations like the Police Executive Research Forum, which is a think tank of best practices and pursuits and use of force, community engagement, crowd management, and things like that. And so Mayor Smith, who is our accreditation manager, will constantly get bulletins. And then we just went through an annual policy review where we review all of our policies, including me, and we go back and tweak things based on what's changed in the law and what the best practices.
So it helps us be accountable to adhering to best practices.
Absolutely. Yep.
It's a proof that says we are adhering to these best practices. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other councilors have questions or comments? Thank you very much, Chief. I'm sure we'll get questions after this meeting as we go through the presentations. I encourage each of you to reach out to Chief and spend time with her as well. Next is Fire Chief Crystal Bell.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'll try to keep this brief. I know it's been a long evening already. Okay, so I'll jump right in. Fire Department, our mission, prevent, protect from harm. FTEs, 92.5. Those are funded positions. I will say, and I'll talk about some of the challenges ahead. we have not been able to keep all those positions filled. We have not had as good as luck as the police department. At one point, we had as many as 12 vacancies in our emergency services. A biennial budget of $41.8 million. And I do want to note a couple things, as Chief Harden mentioned. 10% of our budget is from levy funds. That equates to 16 firefighters. Also, in the previous biennium, when we did have budget challenges, we did have layoffs within the fire department. That was a deputy fire marshal as well as 2 single role employees, our EMTs. However, thankfully for the city's service fee, those cuts could have been much worse. We were able to save 6 firefighter positions. So for the city service fee, talking with finance, the fire department receives about 35% of the fee that is collected. And as I said, about 6 firefighter positions. One more thing on the budget I'd like to hit on. The fire department does bring in about $7 million a year into the general fund, $4 million in ambulance revenue, as well as $3 million in fire protection contracts with 3 rural districts, as well as fire protection and life safety services for the city of Millersburg. Primary functions, when I talk about our department, I kind of talk about 2 sides of the house. Our emergency services side, which is our fire suppression, our ambulance service, which for our new counselors, our ambulance service area is about 202 square miles. So it not only covers the city of Albany, but we also provide ambulance services to Tangent, Halsey Shed, and about 30 miles of Interstate 5. So quite a large area that we provide ambulance service for. And then we are an all hazard response department, meaning beyond just fire and EMS calls. So if it's a water rescue, technical rescue, a hazardous materials, any type of call like that, our department is equipped to respond. We have 3 special teams, water, technical, and hazmat, to function in those capacities, as well as we're part of the state OSFM hazmat team, Region 5, which is made up of Lebanon, Corvallis, and Albany. On the life safety division side, this is our fire marshal oversees that. This is our fire code enforcement, which would be business inspections out in the community, doing those types of things. And then we're also involved, we work with both the city building department as well as the county building department on new construction. Our part for fire code is very limited. It's just access and water supply. So our folks are just making sure that our fire engines and ambulances can get into subdivisions, can get to businesses, and if it is a fire, that we have appropriate water to extinguish the fire. Also on that side of the life safety division is our risk reduction specialist, Sandy Roberts, who is involved with all of our publications, public education at our schools, community outreach, and then we also have a community paramedic that is really vital to our organization, is very involved in several different community groups. It does a good job of working with our vulnerable population. Some of these folks that maybe in the past would continually call 911 for an ambulance, but maybe didn't need an ambulance. They just needed to get in contact with their primary care physician, get their medications refilled, those types of things. And so really it's a proactive approach to try to help these people get the right services that they need, and it's not requiring an ambulance or a fire engine to respond. And then we also listed here the emergency management. Chuck Perino is our emergency manager, and he really represents the entire city and is shared by all departments, but he is housed at the fire station and reports to the fire chief, and so we wanted to make sure that we capture all the good work that he does in our fire department presentation. So right there, some of the primary functions, planning, that could be for natural disasters, any type of weather events, or any events that we have as a city, and making sure that we have adequate resources for police, fire, public works to be ready for those types of events. If there is a disaster, he works with our finance department and other folks in the city to make sure that if there is reimbursement from FEMA, to make sure that the city recoups some of those costs for equipment and personnel. And then public outreach as well. I won't spend much time on our org chart. I will say that 82% of our personnel is in emergency services. We're not top heavy as far as administration goes or support staff, and that Our management team size is actually the same as it was in 1999. So although we've grown a lot in emergency services personnel, we haven't really kept up with that with support services. But we have seen such a dramatic increase in calls for service that the focus really has been boots on the ground and making sure that we have people to respond on fire and medical calls. We had a lot of accomplishments in this current biennium, but just to highlight a few, in November, we just started a new countywide radio system. This was about a 6-year project in the making. We received federal funding to assist with this. This was a joint partnership with the Sheriff's Office as well as all the fire departments in Lynn County. We just couldn't be happier with the results that we're having. So really improved communications in Lynn and Benton County. And there's just the safety aspect for our folks as well to be able to communicate with the 911 center and each other when operating in a hazardous zone. I recently came to council, talked about a new dispatch software that we got, as well as station alerting systems. That installation is occurring this week. We're extremely excited about that. The old system we had was from the early 80s and wasn't very reliable, and so we're excited to get this new program up and running. One thing that had been a goal for the fire department since the late 70s was a training facility. Previously, we would have to go to Corvallis or Polk County to do certain types of training. We were able to get funding, and we are starting construction on our new training facility out behind Station 12 on 34th Avenue. And that will be completed this summer. We just couldn't be more excited about that. As a department, we really take pride in looking for grant opportunities. We know that budgets and funding are challenging at times. You've heard that from all the directors. So any type of grants that we see out there that could benefit the city, that could benefit the department, we really try to aggressively go after. And I just wanted to highlight a couple here. This spring, we'll be doing a fuel reductions project near Southwest 53rd towards the Calapooya River. To create defendable space for that neighborhood there. We also just received a grant from Department of Human Services, and this is a pilot project for about $80,000. And what this project is, we will be purchasing lifting devices as well as training some of the care homes in our area so that if a patient takes a fall, but they're not injured and don't need to be transported to the hospital, that the basically staff on site could help lift the patients up, and it doesn't require us to respond. We go on a lot of lift assists, and so really a proactive approach to try to decrease the number of calls that we respond on there. The two different FEMA grants that we're really proud of, AFG Assistance to Firefighter Grant, that is actually how we purchased our last fire engine. So that was a huge deal for us. We're currently needing to purchase another fire engine, so we just applied for that grant again in hopes that we'll get it. And then SAFER. SAFER is a staffing grant that is 100% paid for by the federal government, and that's for a duration of 3 years. We're about 1.5 years into that right now. So those positions will go away in 1.5 years unless there's additional funding for those positions. Another thing that we really pride ourselves on is, as I mentioned, public education, being in the schools. One of the things that is really dear to our heart is CPR in the schools. A goal of our department is increasing survivability in sudden cardiac arrest in our community. And the best way to do that and the best survival rates are with early bystander CPR and early access to AEDs. So us being out teaching 8th graders, so every 8th grader in GAPS gets this CPR training. And it's also an opportunity for maybe us to do some recruiting and talk to kids and maybe get them excited about the fire service in the future. A cardiac screening program. This is something that we do for student athletes in our community. So usually August, September, this is an opportunity where kids come in, we do a 12-lead EKG of their heart. We send that reading to a physician who looks at it to see if there's any abnormalities. We've actually had a lot of success with this program, and a few kids in our community have been identified that had pre-existing heart conditions that went on to get treatment that really probably avoided a tragedy or two there. As I mentioned, we're always looking for opportunities to save money and do different things. Instead of purchasing brand new ambulances, there's an opportunity to remount ambulances, and we save about $100,000 every time we do this. So that we replace the chassis, but the patient compartment, the box on the back, can be used up to 3 times. And so we're getting ready to ship 2 ambulances off to do that, and then we'll be able to do that a couple more times and save us some money. And then the next one there, partnerships with local colleges. Another good recruiting tool and something that is a win-win for both us and some of the local community colleges is paramedic students come and do ride-alongs with us, practice the skills. They work under the supervisions of our paramedics, get the certain qualifications that they need to become nationally certified, but also it gives us a chance to maybe look at a potential hire down the road. If they're selected, they do apply with us. They've already been trained in our system. They know our community. They know our protocols. So it's a huge benefit that we've been able to hire a couple of these students, and then they really just hit the ground running. We also take every opportunity we can to go out and recruit. So our deputy chief, our EMS chief go out to these local colleges, talk about our department, talk about our city, and try to get them to apply when we have vacancies. And then here's a couple accomplishments from our emergency manager. As I mentioned, when we do have disasters, have weather events, it's important to make sure that the city departments are working together to make sure that we get reimbursed. And so from the ice storm of 2024, almost $90,000 that the city was reimbursed for personnel and equipment costs. Chuck was also able to work with some local churches in our community to make sure that we had locations where cooling and warming centers could take place, and that there was volunteers at those locations to where it wasn't pulling city staff to do that, so that we could focus on whatever, because usually in those type of events, ICE, Public Works is busy, fire, police, we're all doing other things, and so having these other options for people to run these centers is extremely important. And then a couple more for emergency management, public outreach and education, preparedness, letting the community know the impacts of and how much it costs when these things occur. And then when these events are happening, making sure that we have the means and that we're emergency messaging out what to do, what not to do, and keeping the public informed. And then anytime that we have an event in the city, Veterans Day Parade, Art and Air, those types of things, Chuck brings all the departments together to make sure that we have the appropriate resources to handle those type of events should an event occur there. Trends, call volume is always increasing. We've seen in the last 15 years, our calls for service have actually doubled. We're approaching, for this year, running 12,000 calls in 2024. We're about 11,900. So that's a constant trend. It's not just unique to our community, but nationwide, fire and EMS calls are increasing. Staffing challenges, not just unique to Albany, but fire departments across the nation are having trouble recruiting and retaining employees. These last three kind of all tie together, but procurement delays industry-wide for equipment, cost, aging equipment. So when we go to buy a new fire engine, that's $1 million. It takes about 3 years to build that. So we're forecasting for when we need to replace a fire engine, making sure that we have the appropriate funding, and then also doing the same for our facilities and just making sure that our facilities are state-of-the-art and that we're maintaining those. Okay, last slide. Challenges. As I mentioned already, appropriate staffing levels on both the emergency services side as well as our life safety division, recruitment and retention. As I said, we had as many as 12 vacancies. We've improved that. We're down to about 6 vacancies now in the fire department, but we'll continue to have retirements, and so making sure that we're ready and recruiting and able to fill those positions. Because we have had so many vacancies and we do have minimum staffing to make sure that we provide a good service as far as fire and EMS response, we have had significant overtime costs in the fire department. We had expended our entire overtime budget for the biennium in December, and so we're continuing to add to that. But hopefully we'll continue to see improvements as we can get those positions filled. And then one thing that's always been a challenge for our department is adequate funding for equipment replacement. As I mentioned, very expensive to replace fire engines and ladder trucks, and making sure that we have a continual revenue source to continue to fund that. Opportunities, we've been very fortunate that we've been able to promote in-house in the fire department into leadership positions from the fire chief on down. And so we just want to make sure that we continue with that trend, that we're setting people up for success and getting the next generation of leaders ready to take our position when we leave. One thing that I had shared with the council when I came in November for an ambulance rate increase was wall times and working with Samaritan Health and the amount of time that it takes to transfer patient care from our crews over to the emergency room staff. We have upcoming meetings with Samaritan leadership in hopes to better improve that. We do have that fee in place, but our hope is that we could come to some kind of solution to improve that without having to implement that fee. Last thing here I'll end with is just that opportunities. It's important that we're adapting to changes in emergency response. Fire and EMS is ever changing, and we just need to make sure that whatever type of hazard is facing our community, that we're prepared and able to staff appropriately and respond to whatever those type of emergencies are. Sorry if I went a little long.
No, you're
I was
fine.
trying to go fast. Happy to answer any questions.
Counselors, any questions for the chief? I've got three. You got something, Counselor? Counselor? I've got three things. You did bring it up, the impact of assisted living communities or care homes on the fire department. Have those numbers gone up as far as the incidents, or has it stabilized, or?
No, they've actually really improved. They still keep us busy, but that has been a great thing for our community paramedic, that she has been able to address some of those to where we were getting called for things that we probably shouldn't. And so she's been working with those agencies to make sure that a lot of that stuff is getting handled at their level.
So one of the things I'd like to do, I'll reach out to you about this, but I get all these directors together and do like a appreciation thing for them. I'd love to have that person come and I can introduce that person so they can have some more connection there. Fire med, can you please, last time we increased, was that 4 years ago, I think it was, or 3 years ago?
It was.
And so what happens with those dollars?
So that all comes into the department, to the general fund. And so we did look at increasing that, but when we looked at some of the communities around us, we were right in the range where we needed to be. We were just way behind on what we were charging for ambulance rates. And as I had mentioned, we just want to make sure that that our ambulance program can be as self-sufficient as it can, and that we're not drawing from general fund dollars to support that.
So where we're at now is fine for how projected, how long?
Yes.
It is?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I don't know if you remember, but when we did the ambulance rate increase, the finance director, deputy city manager had a great idea that we tie CPI to the ambulance rate increase, knowing that personnel costs, equipment costs, everything continue to go up with inflation, what it is. So.
Okay. That's because that's my business, right? So I bring applications with checks to the fire department. So I just want to find out where that, and then I know a couple of years ago, we talked about the number of transfers in those area, like going to Coos Bay, going to Portland or whatever. Has that number gone down, or is that still pretty high?
The number hasn't gone down, but the locations have improved. So we don't take those transfers to Cave Falls or over to the coast anymore. It's mainly to the metro area, down to Eugene. We still do about 1,500 transfers, interfacility transfers a year, but it's not those long destinations like we had during COVID when it was just tough to find bed space.
Are those costs covered by insurance, or are they covered by the user?
Insurance, both. Yeah, it kind of depends. Oh, the transfers, yeah, that's usually handled in-house and at the request of the facility. So that's insurance or the facility's picking it up. Yeah, those are well paid. Yep.
All right, thank you. Counselors? Thank you, Chief. Next up on tonight's agenda is 5:37. I gotta get back to I went to my questions. Give me a sec.
Library Director Eichenoi is next.
Oh,
Mayor.
excuse me, Library Director Eric Eichen. I'm sorry. I went so far back to answer my questions.
You're good, thank you. I realize I'm like the person between you and dinner, so I will try and move with some alacrity here. All right, library. Okay, it's, all right. The mission of the Albany Public Library is an essential resource promoting community, lifelong learning, and quality services in a safe, welcoming environment. We have 19.5 FTE, 0.05 FTEs. A little perspective on that. The state library has a variety of statistics, and one of those is library staff members per 1,000 members of the population served. The state average is right around 0.50, and we're at like 0.34. And then our budget, we are funded almost entirely through the general fund. All of the rest of our funding comes through grants, through very, very, very generous donors. The Friends of the Library Foundation also contribute a lot to our budget. Primary functions. Everybody else has very clear and concrete functions. Mine are a little squishy. So access. We remove barriers in order to provide resources and services to the community widely and equitably. What this boils down to me is the library is one of the few places left in this country where you don't have to be anyone or you don't have to buy anything to come to the library. It's a great source of pride for myself and for the library staff. Community. We're a vital community center. And a great example of this is the large number of meeting room uses that we have. We have everything from car clubs to yoga clubs to a variety of nonprofits to I believe we have multiple gardening clubs. We have a camera club, and that meeting room space is really important to the public because we don't charge folks for that, and we really saw a pretty strong increase in use post-COVID because a lot of those free meeting spaces tended to go away. Then lifelong learning. We provide resources for community members at all stages of life. I've got a lot of examples that I'll show you all through this rest of this presentation. Org chart. So our org chart looks very different than it did 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we were assistant director model. I split that assistant director model or the assistant director position into kind of 2 supervising librarians. The goal there was to allow for a little bit the ability for staff to have a little closer relationship with their supervisors. We had a lot of young staff who needed a little more guidance in their positions and their careers, and I think it's really been helpful for folks there. There is a huge omission in this org chart, kind of purposely, is volunteers. The library, we have a tremendous number of volunteers who help us do everything from the library book sales, run the Friends of the Library bookstore. We have folks who come in and shelve books, who process books. We have some volunteers who've been with the library for well over 20 years. And our last year, I don't have my most current years, but we had about 3,650 hours of volunteer time. So we couldn't do it without our volunteers at all. Accomplishments, Library of Things. As a library director, the 2 questions you got asked about your library were, do you have a makerspace and do you have a library of things? As of this year, I can now say yes to both of those things. And the Library of Things was something patrons really were asking for. What that is it just, it takes everyday items and allows you to check them out. And so some of our most popular ones have been the pressure washer. People like, who wants to buy a pressure washer or ruin one? So it's great. It's a great opportunity there. We have lots of cool cooking implements and instruments. We have some companion animals that people are really drawn to. Ice cream maker has been very popular, or it was more popular in the summer than it has been lately. Summer reading. Our summer reading program is absolutely tremendous, and it's not just me as a proud library director saying that. We have some of the highest retention of participants in the state. When the state collects all their data, we had this 2024, we had 4,547 participants, which is the most we've ever had in our summer reading, at least that we could find. And one thing that we really tried to do is we tried to cater, also include adults in that program. So we had almost 700 adults participate this year in summer reading, which was a really great thing because I think we really want we want kids to see their parents reading, and it's not just, you drop your kids off at the library, they get some books, and you sit there on your phone. You should get a book too, be a good example. But also with that summer reading, we had 151 programs from June 1st to August 24th, and that included everything from big city trucks to
Mushrooms.
mushroom program. All of such a cool variety of fun programs this year. So, and that includes our story times as well. With our summer reading, we gave out about 13,000 books to folks, and we also give out a variety of prizes. And we've really tried to be cognizant to focus on local businesses to see if they're able to give prizes. So, like one of the prizes is ice cream cone from Hasty Freeze, or a blueberry. You can pick some blueberries. So it's just wonderful to be able to help with that, work with that community. Now, I can brag about the summer reading program, but one thing I'll talk about is actually in this summer, 2025, at the National ALA Conference, our summer reading program. Most specifically, I've got to mention her by name. April Spizak is amazing. She'll be getting recognition from the American Library Association for our summer reading program. And one of the things that they pointed to is our retention rate is extremely high for as long of a program as we do. And also one thing that they talk about is our ability to do more with less. So unbelievably proud. Let's see, more accomplishments, digital access. This is a constant, but a couple highlights from this past year. We provided some computer classes, our past 2 years provided computer classes to folks that maybe need a little more time if they're filling out job applications or doing other things. That little extra guidance can help them. We also started circulating hotspots this year, which has been a real positive for folks in the community who maybe don't have internet access. Let's see, in community engagement, this picture, this is from our Dia de la Muerta program, which is, you can't beat those smiles on those faces, so why not? But community engagement, our library staff, even before the teacher strike, our library staff were able to get out to all the schools in the district at least once to talk about the library in some way, shape, or form. Really proud about working with them. We have staff, we have regular programs with Jackson Street. If I were to go back to that picture of my staff member with the knitting machine, that was actually a program where we were knitting scarves and caps for clients of Jackson Street. So it's just a really fun and cool program. And we've really tried to increase, as I've mentioned, the family programs, more things that everybody can do at once. All right, trends. Okay, so I pulled, I believe, almost all these are linked, came from the ALA website in some way, shape, or form. Trends, like everybody said, everything's getting more expensive. Our materials, books are just creeping up in price. I would say the thing I'm finding more irritating every time I look at the bills are the small little increases that a lot of our e-vendors are kind of trying to add on here or there. Another trend, growing Spanish language population. Currently we only have two staff that speak Spanish fluently. We have others who will try willingly, but maybe aren't quite fluent. But it's a real being able to help the Spanish-speaking population has been a real goal for everybody. And we have all the materials. We've added and a lot of times it's more than just the materials. It's being able to help somebody, direct them to a program, being able to direct them to the right office that they need to go to. A lot of, I'll say Millie and Felipe, our two Spanish library staff, have really created a lot of goodwill and connection in the community. So there's a lot of trust there. So they're often the first people that Spanish speakers will come to. Unhoused population. As I said, you don't have to be anybody or you don't have to buy anything to be in the library, but that means we're working with a large homeless or unhoused population. If everybody plays by the same rules, we're absolutely fine. But unfortunately, we see some of those challenges when it comes to mental health issues, addiction issues. A lot of those are right inside the library, and we're struggling to. One real goal for me and for the rest of the library staff is to always provide safety training. Marsha's been to a staff meeting and provided safety training. We actually have another safety training coming up. We have I think almost all the staff have gone to the mental health first aid training. We're all trying to do those sorts of things to make sure that we're able to serve our patrons better. Politics and book bans. Book bans are a hot topic for libraries. We have been, for the most part, fairly lucky. We've only had one sort of official challenge to a book, but what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of what I call passive censorship, whereas somebody will see a book on the shelf that they don't like, and so they'll take that book and they'll kind of hide it somewhere else in the library collection. Somehow in their morals allow that to make sense to them. So, but anyway, it's an issue that, quite frankly, I feel lucky that we haven't dealt with it more, because I talk to a lot of my colleagues in other places, and it's something that is a constant. Let's see, increased demand for digital materials. This includes, there's a lot of great, fun, new library programs. There's films. You can get films. We don't have a subscription to that because it's too expensive. But let me tell you, I get a lot of people asking me for that. It's a big ask. And another thing, just a little quick economics of ebooks. So the publishers make us treat ebooks the same way we would treat a normal hardback book. So that means you can only circulate one ebook at a time. But then to make up, so a lot of times if you go to wherever you purchase ebooks from, you'll often be able to purchase that ebook for, less than $10. They charge libraries anywhere between $50 and $70 for those same ebooks. It's pretty discouraging, but it's been a challenge to work with the publishers to get them to be a little more lenient, or at least better able for us to save some costs there. Okay, looking ahead, challenges. Staff retirements, like everybody else, we've got potential to lose between 60 to 70 years worth of experience in this biennium. And that's not just library experience, that's actually specific to the Albany Public Library, folks that have been there well over 20 years. I suspect we will lose 2 to 3 of those in the next biennium. So that's a pretty big challenge. Funding sources. I'll try not to get, there's no way not to get a little political about this, but we have an incoming president who, in his last term, made proposals to eliminate the Institute of Museum and Library Services. If that happens in his upcoming term, that could be a major impact on us. And that institute gives a lot of grants to libraries in general, but it also really supports the state libraries. And the state libraries, we get funding for a lot of programs, including our award-winning children's program, summer reading program. We get that funding from the state library, who gets that funding from the IMLS. So that's a big thing for us to look at going forward. I put the Carnegie as a challenge. The Carnegie is a beloved building. It is, I think, in many ways, it's the platonic ideal of what a library is: high ceilings, nice and quiet. It's beautiful, but it's also not the way that people use a modern library. And so, how we staff it, how we program it, how we utilize that space that we know the community loves, but we need to figure out how to get them to show that love with usage. I would say the other challenge there is that it's an inaccessible building. So, the common sense approach would be, hey, why don't you just have Carnegie open when the main library isn't open? That doesn't work because it's inaccessible. You have to be able to offer services, the same services at an alternate location. Okay, opportunities. I'm getting through this. When you have old staff, old, that's not the right word to use there. When you have experienced staff retire, you get the opportunity to hire new staff. And we've seen a really great influx just in the last couple of years of new staff. A lot of these fun programs that we have been bringing in have been, the ideas and energy that our new employees have brought to the library that have just been really excited to be able to do different things. I mentioned another thing I'm looking forward to in this upcoming biennium is to do a facilities and services assessment, essentially kind of a new library-specific master plan that will help us address the Carnegie Library. It'll also help us address the main library and some of the services that we offer there. The new library is 15 years old now. So we've made a lot of small changes in the last couple of years, but I think now I'm at a point where we need to step back and look and see to make sure now that we're not making changes that are going to impact bigger changes we want to make down the road. And last thing, I'll just talk about community partnerships. I talked a little bit about what we work with the school district. Just FYI, all GAP students are eligible to get library cards, regardless of whether they live in the city or not. And then as you've heard some tonight, and you'll hear, we have great city departments, and I love the city partnerships that we have. We have a great Big City Trucks program. We have had firefighter story time. As I mentioned, Marcia's and her staff have provided multiple trainings for my staff. And, I'm always looking for ways to work with Kim because she's just fun to work with. And then also we have the Lynn Library Consortium. So there's not all the libraries in Lynn County are part of the consortium, but a majority of them are, including LBCC. And I keep looking at this as an opportunity because we need to figure out a way to really work together more closely and figure out, I guess I'll say, we need to see if we can rub our nickels together enough to see if we can make maybe 15 cents instead of just a dime. I think we can use some collective bargaining. That sounds actually businessy, but it's not really what it is. But to kind of work as a true consortium to figure out how we can help get lower prices, how we can help serve our patrons better, and that's it.
Council, thank you very much, Director. Councilors, any questions or feedback for the Director?
I loved the library program. My whole family participated. Also, currently, the knitting machine that you had the picture of is residing at my home.
Oh, awesome.
My husband is working on some hats.
Okay.
My daughter also checked out a video game, so thank you for having video games.
The video games
That's
are
a lot
wonderful.
of fun.
Yeah.
My kids also have rated the Carnegie Library's children's area better than the main library. Food for thought. But But, you know, I am obsessed with the library, and I was a little sad that you guys were recognized for doing more with less, because I'd love if we were able to rub more than a few nickels.
Yeah.
And see what we could do with an expanded library program, what kind of services, because these are the services that really impact the livability. You mentioned it when in the beginning of your presentation. This is one of the last places where people in Albany can go and not spend any money, and they get much more than books. And if anyone needs a reading list, I can give you everything that I read this last year. Spoiler alert, all the Bridgerton books. They were so good. But yeah, I think that you guys do a fantastic job, and thank you for all the good work.
Thanks.
Councilor McLeod had something.
Yes, so I am number 6 on the waiting list for the knitting machine. If Scott could return that, I would appreciate it.
Sorry.
That is a popular one.
True story. Also, I just wanted to thank you for your report. I know as a kid, being home alone after school, if I needed help with my homework, I knew I could always call the library and talk to a librarian. So thank you for continuing to offer that service here.
Councilor McGee?
This summer I had to do a really large research project for the Oregon Black Pioneers and needed to track down the book that was published in the 30s through Interlibrary Loan, but y'all made sure I got it.
Oh, awesome.
And I appreciate it. And,
Cool.
and it was easy to get through it, and you all made sure that I got what I needed and extended the deadline so I can have it for at least a couple more weeks or so.
Great,
Thanks.
great. Glad to hear it.
Any councilors on this side? Councilor Montague? Oh, you're good? Councilor Thompson? Councilor Smith? I just want to thank you for all the work you guys do. And I do know that the member I appointed to the library board loves going to the library, and she loves being a part of working with library staff. So I want to say thank you very much for your hard work.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Next on to, also one more thing, sorry. The cost that they gave you for the video, whatever, you talked about movies or ebooks?
Yeah. So ebooks. Yeah. That's we have to buy our ebooks through a license. We can't buy
From Amazon, you can't.
Yeah,
just go
we
get-
can't buy an ebook through Amazon because it has to be available through the platform that we
that's-
provide the ebooks through.
So they charging $15, $20, $30 for these books?
Oh, they'll charge $50 to $60 to us. Yeah. So yeah.
And you can only let one license go out at a time?
Yep. It's crazy.
Audiobook.
That's highway robbery. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Wow. Wow, that's nuts. Next up is going to be our Parks Director, Kimberly Dane.
Good afternoon. Okay, in the spirit of Parks and Rec, we reached the 2-hour mark. I want you to shake it out. I want you to reach up, open your ears, get excited. All right. So thank you all for playing along with me. So my name is Kim Ledane, and I'm the lucky gal that's the director of Albany Parks and Recreation. I have the gift of gab and necessary fun facts, so I'm more scripted tonight than normal, so thanks for your patience in advance. So let's dive in. Our mission is to promote healthy living through recreational experiences and to serve as stewards of Albany's public parks and facilities. For our FTE, we consist of staff who support parks and recreation as well as citywide building maintenance. We have 26.25 FTE, 3 of which are dedicated solely to building maintenance that supports more than just our department. Our biennial budget for parks and recreation is $30.4 million. This includes operating funds, but also our reserves, contingencies, capital improvement dollars, as well as system development dollars, charges. Our actual biennial operating budget is closer to $16 million over the 2 years, and the biennial budget for building maintenance is $1.8 million. Our functions can be broken down into 3 areas. We're funded through a mix of registration, rental fees, sponsorship grants, and property taxes. So on our park side, we maintain 33 parks and close to 900 acres of green space. We have 5 trails, 26 playgrounds, 11 sports courts, 12 sports fields, 1 outdoor fitness park, a dog park, and 3 boat launches. We're responsible for the city's urban forestry program, which encompasses over 16,000 trees. We're a Tree City USA and have been for 30 years due to our practices. In 2024, we were responsible for watering 500 trees to make sure that they were established and that they'll be around for years to come. And in this upcoming year, 234 new trees will be planted either between replacements or subdivisions. The department's responsible for community beautification, which includes everything from beautiful median plantings, welcome to Albany signs, public art, graffiti remediation, vandalism repair, and transient camp cleanup. On the recreation side, we provide 500+ recreation programs a year across our parks and facilities. Our team is responsible for award-winning and regionally known community events such as River Rhythms and Northwest Art and Air Festival. We manage and program the Riverfront Community Center, Albany Community Pool, which is owned by Greater Albany Public Schools, as well as Cool Pool. Maple Lawn is currently in transition since the preschool is no longer there and the space is going to be retrofitted for additional recreation programs. And we also operate classes out of alternative sites such as schools and local businesses. Anywhere that'll have us, we'll program. The building maintenance team is responsible for the upkeep of 25 building complexes. That's including the fire stations, police, library, operation, all across the city. This totals to about 500,000 square feet of interior space and about 76 acres of green space. They're responsible for both preventative maintenance as well as managing emergencies as they arrive. So we are a lean but mighty crew. Our department was the largest back in 2008, but since then we're down 25% of our staff due to budget limitations. So in addition to myself, we have only two other supervisors who are actually managers to oversee staff. Our staff include the 3 from building maintenance, 8 in park maintenance, 12 between recreation and administration, in addition to our many, many contracted and part-time staff who make up lifeguards, instructors, camp counselors, park maintenance, seasonals. As for accomplishments, deferred maintenance has been an issue with us for decades. COVID was a tipping point, and during that time, we disbanded programs and laid off 4.5 FTE. When the city services fee was passed, we made a conscious decision not to bring back laid off FTE, as we knew rising staff costs would leave me in a few years back to those same conversations. So instead, we decided to spend our funds on our long, long list of projects. So using our portion of the city services fee, which is $1.78 out of the $9 that's collected monthly, in addition to grant funds, our department accomplished tasks that have been on the list for many years. In fact, 40 projects over 22 locations. Larger projects include Monteith Restroom, non-SDC covered Meadow Ridge costs, Henderson Park, Deerfield renovation in the next budget cycle. But it's not just these big projects that these cover. They cover smaller things like security improvements at the Riverfront Community Center, the ADA railing that was installed at Monteith, resurfacing the pickleball and tennis courts, redoing the horseshoe pits, replacing the original Cool Pool furniture, and the list kind of goes on and on. As far as programs go, I don't know if you're aware, but the Significant Carer project just finished up at the waterfront. Matthew touched on it. And as you know, this is not our department's money. That is a Carer project, and instead we were one lucky stakeholder. And I'm incredibly proud that the River Rhythm series was able to adapt and move right in just days after we received the keys to the park. Not only for the kickoff of the 40th anniversary, but the 4th of July. You know, no stress, no pressure, right? Staff adapted and our programs to the space, and we provided really wonderful experiences throughout this summer, our first summer back in the park, to the community. The rebranding of the Riverfront Community Center, while controversial, has improved not only our program offerings, but actually our rental revenue, even with the front of the building closed for 18 months due to waterfront construction. So we are up 100% in our rental revenue in the last year alone. And while it's not a huge number, it's about $50,000, every dollar matters for our department. And this increased revenue really goes to help keep other programs more affordable. For the first time since COVID, we have a dedicated programmer for our adult programs and are able to generate a variety of new programs. This year we had 15, and they include everything from bread baking, conversational Spanish, line dancing, and AI for everyone. Staff worked with existing instructors to increase their capacity of existing classes and are currently working on adding additional fitness opportunities. There are lots of applications for new instructors, and we're so thankful that we've got staff to help program out. The last year, we've seen an increase in our STEM participation for our youth programs. We've seen new classes, changes to our camps, as well as new themes and field trips coming back for juniors and explorers and little explorers. After noticing, like Eric mentioned, a void in programming for families, We're starting more family classes so that multi-generational opportunities exist for people to come together, to learn Spanish as a family, to learn how to make soap together as a family, and even family drum circle. So in aquatics, our facility improvements that we made over the last year help our staff work more easily. And despite not being able to find enough swim instructors, which is a national trend, we still managed to have over 1,500 3 to 5-year-olds and over 4,000 6 to 14-year-olds find spots in our kids' swim lessons. Additional accomplishments. Every day we do our best to generate alternative funding. In the last year, we applied for several grants, and we actually received 7, totaling over $600,000. Grants have helped to fund older adult programs, discounted swim passes, the city's first sensory playground at Lehigh Park, our water awareness program, which serves 1,500 kids, I wish 15,000 kids, 1,500 kids annually, the upcoming Deerfield renovation, turtle habitat restoration and invasive plant management at East Thornton Lake, and even maintenance at the Monteith House. Sponsorships continues to be a major focus for our department. As without them, River Rhythms and Northwest Art and Air would not happen. Sponsorship levels hit their high back in 2019 and have not recovered since the pandemic. But this year we're incredibly happy as we brought in over $400,000 in sponsorships, that's between cash and in kind, from 82 community sponsors. And work is well underway to make sure that we can continue these programs for 2025 and beyond. Additionally, last year, the city adopted the ADA transition plan. 2,000 and 1,500 individual barriers were identified in just our parks, hardscape trails, and recreation facilities. These improvements are estimated over well over $10 million to complete. We don't have that much money, but we have done our best to knock off as many barriers as we can using grant funds. So since then, we've completed 8 new ADA ramps at 5 parks, added 240 feet of accessible pathways at 3 parks, added 10 accessible picnic tables, 11 accessible picnic pads. We've had many, many smaller building improvements at the Riverfront Community Center, Albany Community Pool, and at City Hall. These are all low dollar items, but they take skilled labor time from our staff. We're working hard to set aside money for the next budget cycle for continued needed improvements. With this said, improvements are not cheap. The next one we're looking at is creating an accessible back door at the Riverfront Community Center. Even after the park is reopened, many of our patrons continue to use the back due to mobility issues. And as a result, we need an automatic door back there. And one of those costs about $12,000. So that's just an example. As far as trends go, aging infrastructure. Many of our facilities and parks were created in the heyday of parks and recreation, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, when parks and recreation was treated as a social service and the money was flowing. Sadly, it's a national problem that funds were not allocated to support these facilities, amenities, and programs in changing financial environments. As failures occur, amenities come offline until adequate funding or limited parts become available. An example close to home is the 40-year-old playground equipment at Deerfield that's no longer there because we can't find parts to go on it that cover our liability. Another one that's close to home is the Osborne Aquatic Facility in Corvallis that's closed due to an issue with their roof. Similar facility. It's been closed since September, and there's no information on when reopening will happen. So while we're working hard to address deferred maintenance, our system was not invested in for far too long, and we are going to feel impacts as things begin to age and fail. It was mentioned already by everybody, but inflation and construction costs impact our department as well. One example is our upcoming Deerfield Park renovation. In 2019, the scope of the work was estimated at about $250,000. When we went out to do the same project, it's $1.25 million. So that is just one example in a line of many, many projects. Speaking of risk, Parks and Recreation felt a shockwave over the last few years as recreational immunity was challenged. So recreational immunity is essentially a law that protects landowners if a user seeks damages based on an unfortunate industry. So in 2023, Fields versus Newport, after that decision, many trails and a lot of amenities closed because the risk was too high, as the recreation or the activity that resulted in the injury, walking, was not classified as recreation. So temporary fixes were passed in the last legislative session, but broader long-term fixes are still needed. Our next one, a significant amount of time and resources for our department is being dedicated to issues resulting from transients and vandalism. These are issues that we hear about very often as they're high profile and they have health and safety concerns. As a result, skilled staff are pulled from their core duties, which could have been horticulture, irrigation, structures, to deal with undesirable behaviors and issues. It's never ending. We could pull our entire park maintenance team to work on these issues and the next day, start all over again. Transients and vandalisms are a major stressor on our operations and on our staff, as we're not necessarily social workers. And it's just, it is something that makes our current profession a challenge. But with all this said, we still take a lot of pride in our work. We love our community and we want to continue to make it a wonderful place to live, work, and play. But we're at a tipping point. We have fewer staff, more requests, and higher costs, which means it's becoming more difficult to meet community expectations. When things go wrong and are reported, there's an expectation that it'll be fixed immediately. Playground part breaks, a tree limb or leaves fall in our park, a camp is identified, or new graffiti appears. Sadly, we don't have enough people or resources to get it all done as quickly as we want to, so we have to prioritize. Things take longer, which makes all of us frustrated. And additionally, people are used to getting services and programs for free or very low cost. This is anything and everything from softball rentals to senior meals, river rhythms to the Timberland shelter for a birthday party. This is difficult when Parks and Recreation is no longer subsidized as we once were, and we must operate more like a business and recover some costs or we will not exist. A high-profile example of the impacts of rising costs are performers for our free events. We have a reputation of bringing national acts to Albany for free concerts. In the past, we've had powerhouse groups like the Dixie Chicks, Sugarland, and Joe Jett. Performers like this used to be aspirational, but not impossible. Performers' costs have skyrocketed, and we're not going back. Looking ahead, due to the nature of our budget, we've been reactive instead of proactive. We have to put out the fire that is hopefully just literally and not figuratively, but we have had that in my tenure in front of us. Our staffing levels compared to the National Parks and Recreation Agency is well below half our community for our size. I even gave us the benefit of the doubt and said maybe that number doesn't include part-time instructors, all that. Even when I add all of those hours up, we're still 10 FTE behind. So without people, we can't do all the work that's expected by our community. We're feeling the impact of climate change in several ways. Hotter and smokier days are changing people's recreation preferences. Ice storms cause significant damage. Additionally, weather changes impact OSHA requirements, so excessive heat makes it harder for us to staff a pool as we need more people, and sometimes we can't afford to put more people at the pool in order to make it run. So I want to say that we're very thankful for the splash pad as it creates an equitable opportunity for people to come and cool off, as weather change continues. And the partnerships, we rely really heavily on partners and sponsors. And as our partners and sponsors' leadership changes, or their budgets, or their missions change, so does potentially their support of our programs, which could impact us. And then we also have 3 retirements alone in the next year that will impact us once again, 62 years of City of Albany Parks and Recreation service. So we've got a lot to learn from folks before they leave. With all this said, we're excited about our opportunities. We're utilizing technology to make sure that we're working as efficient as possible. We're always looking at alternative funding. That who knows, that might one day mean bringing system development charge questions back to you all. Who knows, maybe even a future bond or a levy. We're always looking for ways to utilize space more efficiently to serve more within our population with our same resources. We're interested in taking programs and events out to our neighborhoods so that people are seeing their tax dollars closer to home and are able to get out and enjoy our beautiful parks. And then also volunteer opportunities. Volunteers aren't free, but they are fantastic, and we would look much different without Adopt a Park, Graffiti Chasers, and our folks who help with special events. So thinking about ways that we can continue to harness that power to make our department thrive in the future. So I'm close, but does anybody have any questions? I'd be more than happy to answer
Council?
them.
Mayor, may I ask Kim to tell the council or give the council an idea of the rise in costs of performances, put a value to that?
Some of them are, in all honesty, 10 times what they were when we priced them out, pre-pandemic. we put out a survey asking our community what types of music and what performers they would like to hear. And I'm really happy as we had 500 people participate in that survey, and we got really great responses. So we threw out a couple of the names to our booking agent that we saw on there, and they ranged anywhere from $750,000 for a 90-minute performance to, $2 to $4 million. So it's a lot of money, and we're very proud of our series. We want to make sure that we're keeping the quality up, but it's not really sustainable with, we're trying to figure out ways to get good deals and to get really great acts, and to keep our community proud of us, as we feel like it's really very much woven in the fabric of, Albany civic pride.
Counselors? Go ahead, please.
In the agenda packet for Wednesday, we are considering some appointments to boards and commissions, and an applicant for one of the Parks and Rec and Tree Commission mentioned the return of, desiring the return of adult softball and other adult sports. And that program has been gone for some years. Any comments?
Sure. Well, I would love to say that we'd be able to bring that back. We subsidize that program between staffing and field costs, I think, over $300,000, close to $400,000, which we had, I think, about less than 150 participants, which, don't get me wrong, 150 participants is wonderful. It's just when you're looking at that dollar amount that it takes, we're able to partner with Corvallis. They took on the administrative costs and still use our fields, and we're able to save hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I would love to say, yes, we're able to bring it back. It is nowhere in the trajectory based on our finances.
The program exists, but it's not our program. Is
Correct.
What you're saying. Thank you.
Counselor Montague? Right over here. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So, Director, thank you very much for the hard work you guys do, and I saw a lot of the fallout from last year. You guys did an amazing job, and I'm proud as the mayor of Albany to share about the things that your staff does, and all the staff, what the work they do for us on our behalf. I just can't tell you enough how much I appreciate the work you and your team do.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Enjoy your rest of your evening.
Next up is the Director of Finance, Gina Yeager.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
may I recommend that we're at 6:20, so it would be a natural break point to continue. We're on the agenda to continue these briefings
Okay,
on
so
Wednesday evening.
Council, you okay with that?
Let's continue on Wednesday.
Okay,
Yes.
so we'll start with finance on Wednesday then?
Yes.
So let me go back to my original agenda and see what we're at here. Only 40 pages. What's the long 40 pages? I know somebody did.
Mayor, your next item is
I know.
business from the
I
council.
just had to get back to my agenda. Uh-oh, what's going on here? This thing's just running. Hold up, stop. Okay. Okay. Next up is business from the council, and I will start with the first new counselor, Councilman McLeod.
Thank you, sir. I did receive a voicemail from a constituent over the weekend. Unfortunately, he did not leave his phone number in the voicemail, and so I was unable to call him back. With the way that the phone system routes to us, I did not have it on caller ID, so he did not leave his phone number. If that gentleman is listening or watching, please call me back and give me your number. Thank you. I will have other remarks on Wednesday.
Okay,
Thank you.
Counselor Thompson?
No, just happy to be here. I just, I've sat through many of these presentations over the years as part of the budget committee. And something that hasn't changed, that I just want to point out, because we'll discuss this more, but I was struck by how much the police and fire, significant employees are covered under the city services fee and the public safety levy, which is another way of saying our property taxes don't even cover what we all agree is absolutely vital and necessary services. And so that that has ramifications for other things that come up later on. And I never forget that. We talk a lot, I mean, when you ask a citizen, you know, they often think of property taxes as how we fund our city, and those only go to a certain percent. I mean, they only end up covering a certain percentage of what we all consider absolutely vital services.
Thank you. Counselor Montague?
I just want to say welcome to our new counselors. I'm very excited to be serving next to you for the next couple of years.
Counselor Newton-Azor?
Counselor Montague just took it out of my mouth. Excited to be serving with you both, and welcome back, Marilyn Smith. Not that you weren't ever leaving, but happy you're also here.
Counselor McGee?
Nothing tonight.
Counselor Smith?
I want to issue an invitation to, no offense to the mayor or Councilor Thompson, but issue a renewed invitation to my fellow women councilors to join into the Women's Caucus that the League of Oregon Cities sponsors. We had our board orientation meeting today for an incoming board. I'm serving as the vice president for the caucus this year, and we would love to have you attend. We've streamlined our bylaws so that we only have one meeting a month, and the meetings are going to be, we hope, more member-focused than they have been for a long time. We had a lot of infrastructure building to do over the last few years, bylaws and boring stuff that makes it possible for us to now get down to the business of serving our members. So your information is available for me at any time. Would welcome you aboard.
So Counselor Smith, no offense was taken. It's a very important organization, so I appreciate that. All I have tonight is I'd like to welcome the new counselors. It's new faces is always good to have in the room. And also, but I'd also like to have, again, a welcome to our new city clerk. And looking forward to continue working with you. And congratulations to all of you for your election and re-election. And now we'll turn it over to city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things, 4 things to be specific. The first one, thanks to Councilor Thompson for mentioning property taxes and the limitations on them. He mentioned what he didn't say, which goes further to his point, that is, out of every property tax dollar, the city only gets about 40 cents. So property taxes don't go just to fund the city. They also go to fund the county, the school district, and LBCC and 4-H as well. Ordinarily, an ordinance, once it receives its first reading, would come back to the council at the next Wednesday. The staff would like to recommend that the council allow the construction excise tax and the low-income property tax exemption ordinances to come back at a later date in order for staff to further look at comments and feedback that were provided, not just at our last meeting, but also online and in written form. So if the council is open to that idea, I would propose that we bring it back at a date later in the future. If you have any, concerns about that or questions, I know Matthew is available to talk to it as well.
Councilor Montague has a question.
So what you're saying is it'd come back for the second reading or another first reading?
No, it
Because
would
if
come back for
there's
as I
changes-
understand it, we could bring it back for the second reading.
Unless there's changes, right?
Yeah, that's correct. If there were
Okay.
changes, we'd have to go through the process again.
Okay, thank you.
So I personally think it's a good idea to do some more work on it. Councilor, get a thumbs up? I'll give a thumbs up?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. You heard from both chiefs tonight about the public safety levy. You heard a little bit about it in reference to it, and you will hear more on January 22nd. So it'll be a more detailed report out on it. And then finally, I have to comment on, regarding suggestions of bias. Staff deal in facts and an honest an assessment and evaluation of facts. So we do not exclude sources based on their perceived political leanings. And again, we provide statistics. and they're from reputable sources, and we do not exclude anybody's perspectives based on their political leanings. I assure you that you'll see statistics from different points on the political spectrum throughout the year. So just want to assure the council of the staff's objective look at all things and the use of sources that are reputable sources. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Peter. And with that, our next meeting is going to be Wednesday night at 6 p.m. for our regular city council meeting. If you are going to invite people to attend your swearing-in ceremony, please have them come. And I look forward to seeing you all again and picking back up at the Finance Committee at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, January 8th. Thank you very much. With that, I'll adjourn the meeting.
Right like the wind.